the Supreme Court is a hopelessly political institution. And this was a big fear for those in the know when people were being a little cavalier about the dangers of Donald Trump before the 2016 election, that is what about the Supreme Court, right? We've been in a 5-4 conservative majority with the Roberts Court, and now it's solidified to a 6-3. We may never see the court shift back to the liberal side in our lifetimes. And even then, liberal Supreme Court justices are going to rule in favor of capitalists and the wealth class, 10 times out of 10. But what the conservative Supreme Court and conservative justices have done and will continue to do. I've talked about the attacks on voting rights by Republican lawmakers across several states, but who needs? Right now they're getting the assist from the Supreme Court. Supreme Court upholds Arizona voting laws that lower court found were unfair to minorities. The Supreme Court on Thursday upheld 2 Arizona voting restrictions that a lower court had said discriminate against minority voters, a ruling that suggests it will be harder to successfully challenge a spate of new laws passed by state legislators in the aftermath of the 2020 election. Justice Samuel Alito wrote the opinion in the 6-3 ruling, 6-3, with the court's conservative majority in charge. The court's liberals joined in opinion by Justice Elena Kagan, protesting that decision weakens the shield provided by the Voting Rights Act, first passed in 1965 to forbid laws that result in discrimination based on race. The final day of the Supreme Court's decision-making brought a second opinion about the disclosure of donors, decided along the same conservative-liberal divide. It was a partisan, close to a term in which the justices had successfully decided many controversial cases without rancor. So everybody's all like, oh, the cheerleader can cuss on her Snapchat. Yay. I mean, they just gutted more of the Voting Rights Act. The Supreme Court had already gutted sections of the Voting Rights Act. Now, more of it. Now, it's even more shaky, and they basically have opened the door now for Republican states to crank up their anti-voter campaigns. Let's see. The final day also came and went without word from Justice Stephen G. Breyer about his future. Liberal activists and some Democrats have openly called on the 82-year-old to step down so that President Biden can nominate a successor while Democrats control the Senate. We're just stuck with these geriatrics, people. I'm sorry to be, for anybody, if any of y'all listening are old, I'm sorry, but old people need to, hand the baton over, let go of some of the great power they hold in their clammy hands with their spindly little fingers. Just let go some of this power, please, for the future of humanity. This is just so devastating and disgusting. The voting rights cases from Arizona marked the first time the court considered how one section of the VRA applies to voting rules that have a disproportionate impact on minority groups, and it came at a time when Republican-led states have adopted a string of voting changes that Democrats say will impose burdens. Now, I think it's pretty obvious that they will impose burdens because that's basically how Republicans have organized their whole project. It is just based on that, by setting up as many barriers as they can between you and the ballot box, between whatever person of color in your community and the ballot box. That's their modus operandi as far as this stuff is concerned. Let's check out this video from Ari Berman with Mother Jones. Y'all should go follow Ari Berman. He covers this stuff all the time. But let's check out this video here. It's just, when you see what's already going on and then the Supreme Court makes this decision, you recognize how deep what kind of shit we're in and how deep we are standing in it.
From Georgia to Arizona, Florida to Montana, and beyond, GOP-sponsored bills are threatening your right to vote. But how did America get here?
We made too much progress to go back. And that's why we're here today, standing up for the voting rights of all Americans.
One hugely consequential day in this modern war on voting rights is June 25th, 2013.
After nearly half a century, the U.S. Supreme Court pulled the plug today.
Chief Justice John Roberts made no secret about his skepticism that it was still required.
In a history-changing decision called Shelby County v. Holder, the Supreme Court gutted a key section of the Voting Rights Act. At the time, Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg warned that such a decision would be like throwing away your umbrella in a rainstorm because you are not getting wet. More than half the states in the U.S. have laws on the books restricting voting rights since the Shelby decision. Within hours of the decision in 2013, Texas enacted one of the country's strictest ID laws.
Within hours, guys. This is how ready the right is to restrict voting rights.
I mean, you may have to drive, 300 miles some places to get a voter ID in Texas? I mean, who's going to do that?
Those criticisms are false.
North Carolina was next, cutting early voting and polling hours. Fast forward to 2016. 14 new states had restrictive voting laws on the books, helping Donald Trump secure his victory.
Oh, hey, you don't say. Donald Trump won the Electoral College by 70,000 votes across 3 states.
By 2018, states previously covered by the VRA had closed to 2016. 14 new states had restrictive voting laws on the books, helping Donald.
Any of those states look familiar? The ones that helped, are any of those the states that gave Donald Trump the presidency? Right? If y'all think this stuff doesn't matter, I get a lot of shit sometimes from leftists, very far left people who are saying, oh, you care about elections? You're just a lib. You're not a leftist. You're a lib. How are we? I'm sorry. How do you think workers are going to build any power, or we're gonna address any of the crises we're experiencing if we can't even vote? We can't even get the vote. Or your vote, there's so many barriers between you and the vote that they know it's a numbers game, and they can get Donald Trump in. I mean, think of all the rat fuckery that went into the 2016 election, whether it's the Trump campaign, the Russia hacking stuff, all the Cambridge Analytica social media mind fuckery, the fake news, and cherry on top, this shit.
Voting laws on the books, helping Donald Trump secure his victory.
And, half a million people dead from a preventable disease that he that probably wouldn't have happened that way if somebody else had been in charge.
By 2018, states previously covered by the VRA had closed over 1,600 polling places.
Jesus.
Voter purging had increased 40% in states with a history of voting discrimination. Voter suppression has only intensified since then. Right now, influenced by dark money groups like Heritage Action for America, 17 states have passed nearly 30 new laws this year, making it harder to vote. Voting rights advocates say there's a fix.
We need to pass the For the People Act. We need to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act.
This issue is about the preservation and the protection of the democracy itself.
And it's our responsibility right now with utmost urgency to really strengthen a lot of our democratic institutions.
These bills would expand voting access for tens of millions of Americans and expand protections under the Voting Rights Act that were gutted by the Supreme Court. But democracy hangs in the balance.
They mentioned when the Supreme Court gutted the Civil Rights Act in 2013 or 2014, and how the decision this week is a continuation of that. And why is this such a thing for the Republicans? And it's funny because ever since Trump won and we saw his choices for the Supreme Court, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, Barrett, I mean, these are arch conservatives. These are far right conservatives that were definitely, he was broadcasting pro-life, pro-corporation, pro-business, messages the whole time. But y'all should really be afraid of John Roberts, because this has been his mission for most of his professional life. This story, Politico, this is not a bad story from Politico, but this is part of Ari Berman's new book. Really, this is an they've adapted like a section of Ari Berman's new book about John Roberts. So I'm probably going to try to get my hands on this book when it comes out. But go check out the story inside John Roberts' decades-long crusade against the Voting Rights Act. Let's see. I see what you're saying, Jandra World. Let me see here. Maybe there's a way I can fix it. Well, we'll see. But look at this story. John Glover Roberts, a 25-year-old graduate of Harvard Law School, arrived in Washington in early 1980. Harvard Law professor Morton Horowitz described Roberts as, quote, a conservative looking for a conservative ideology in American history. And he found that ideology in the nation's capital, first as a clerk for Supreme Court Justice William Rehnquist, and then as an influential aide in Ronald Reagan's Justice Department. So, John Roberts was a part of the Reagan Justice Department. Rehnquist was very conservative, and he clerked for him. There's all kinds of records. We have direct quotes. He was basically this young firebrand, like a wonderkind. He was an intern that was blowing away all of these senators and judges and these important, conservative, powerful legal minds. He immediately kind of, shown himself to be a talent for what they wanted. Listen to this. This is a quote. Let's see. What year was this? This is during the Reagan years. This is a quote from John Roberts. Quote, "This is an exciting time to be at the Justice Department," Roberts wrote to Judge William Friendly of the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. "So much that has been taken for granted for so long is being seriously reconsidered." In 1982, key parts of the Voting Rights Act were set to expire. The House, which was still controlled by Democrats, held extensive hearings, including field hearings in Alabama and Texas, and voted 389 to 24 to extend the Voting Rights Act for 10 years and reverse the Mobile decision by requiring plaintiffs to prove only the effects of voting discrimination under Section 2, not the intent. So the Voting Rights Act was popular, so it got reified. But basically, around this time, John Roberts was able to recognize where the weakness was, and that there is a quote from here where he's super angry. Let's see. So, so basically, to have the Voting Rights Act understood and only enforced if it was proved that there was racist intent. His big thing that he recognized was the weakness that there could be a racist outcome, but you have to prove a racist intent. It could just have a racist outcome, like there's never any black representatives elected in majority black areas, but you have to prove that that's why. Let's see. Like right here, this is interesting. Listen to this. On March 1st, 1982, following Brad Reynolds' testimony, the Reagan administration won a major victory when the Senate Subcommittee on the Constitution passed a 10-year extension of the Voting Rights Act that preserved the Supreme Court's intent test for Section 2. Strom Thurmond appeared to be on the verge of killing the House bill. Strom Thurmond, notorious racist. Senator Bob Dole of Kansas, the powerful chairman of the Finance Committee, stepped in to broker a compromise. Dole advised fellow Republicans to make, quote, the extra effort to erase the lingering image of our party as the cadre of the elite, the wealthy, the insensitive, the racist. Our job now is to demonstrate concern to blacks and others who doubt our sincerity. Dole adopted the House-backed effects test for Section 2, but added a disclaimer that a lack of proportional representation was not enough to justify a Section 2 violation. Roberts was furious. Quote, there is no reason to change the permanent nationwide provisions of the Voting Rights Act from an intent test to a results test, he wrote in response to an editorial passing the bill. This is in the 80s, where John Roberts was just a little insider, intern, think tank, or legal clerk guy trying to help guide the right into stripping people of their right to vote, of undermining voting rights. This is a problem, guys. This is a big deal. And this has been his long-term goal, is undermining democracy in this country. And that's why the Democrats, it's just a goddamn shame that they're the ones we have to try to hope will do something, because that's really not what they are known for. Democrats have a, quote, once-in-a-century moment to protect voting rights. Imagine that. The Democrats always have a once-in-a-century moment to do lots of things, but they never quite do. The Senate will hold its first hearing Wednesday on the For the People Act, the most significant democracy reform bill since the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Quote, this is a once-in-a-century moment to protect people's right to vote, Senator Amy Klobuchar, chair of the Senate Rules Committee, which is holding the hearing, told Mother Jones. The For the People Act, which passed the House in March, is the Democrats' answer to the GOP's escalating war on voting. At a time when more than 250 bills to curtail access to the ballot have been introduced in 43 states, it would dramatically expand voting access through policies like automatic and election day registration, universal mail-in voting, while blocking voting restrictions like new voter ID laws, discriminatory voter purges. The purges are a big part of the Republican playbook. So with so much at stake, we need to not just protect and defend voting rights, we need to grow them as they're coming under assault from so many states in the country, said Senator Alex Padilla, California, who also sits on the Rules Committee and previously oversaw voting in California as the state Secretary of State from 2015 to 2021. So the bill will only clear the Senate if Democrats abolish the filibuster to approve it with a simple majority vote. Two centrist Democratic senators, Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, have so far said they will not scrap the filibuster. So that's what we're stuck with, is are we going to get the voting rights bill passed? There's so much that needs to happen. They need to abolish the filibuster. Or reform it at least to even do that. And even if they did, Manchin and Sinema both contend that no, we're not for the Voting Rights Act because of bipartisanship, bro. We need the bipartisanship.